then we step up all the way up to here. Same position, okay?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 6th Annual Veterans Day Memorial and Flag Retirement Ceremony. The Pinole Historical Society and the City of Pinole is proud to put on this event every year. It's an opportunity to honor our veterans who have served us and protected our freedoms. We gather here at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month every year, November 11th, because on that date in 1918 at 11 a.m., the armistice that ended World War I was signed and hostilities ceased. At this time, please stand as the Pinole Police Explorers present the colors, and remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Pinole Valley High School a cappella choir as they sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Rock and forward. us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
1, 2, 3. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He has trampled out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of the 100 circling camps. He had builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I have read his righteous sentence, silence in returning wrath. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Please be seated.
My name's Debbie Long. I'm the mayor of the city of Pinole, and welcome on behalf of myself and the rest of the city council. Today is a day of tribute to all who have served their country in war. But one day is simply not enough. One day a year is like acknowledging a birthday or a passage of time. Honoring individuals who have sacrificed for us all goes beyond the passage of time and should not be just a day to allow politicians to give a politically correct speech. Maybe it should be considered a day of accountability. I don't want to imply that every elected official is simply giving lip service to our returning men and women in the service, but I do believe that there is more to honoring our veterans than just setting aside every day to say, one day a year to say thank you. For those of you that haven't experienced or don't understand the plight of our vets, please let me enlighten you to just a few of the obstacles that our heroes face. 70% of all claims for benefits submitted to the VA are returned. In some cases, it can take up to 16 months and even longer for claims to be accepted and disabilities to be evaluated. Did you know that it takes an average of 7 months to get an appointment in a VA facility? 30% of our returning veterans have PTSD, and it can take up to 6 weeks to receive treatment once they are diagnosed. 18 veterans commit suicide each day. Yet our government can't operate efficiently enough to get our men and women the help that they need. In fact, our government is unprepared and ill-equipped to render the social services to our vets through trained physicians in or out of the VA system. The VA only has 1,500 sites of care, including hospitals, clinics, counseling, and various other facilities. Those facilities are spread over 50 states. That's an average of 30 facilities per state. When a vet enrolls in the VA system, they are assigned a priority group to balance the demands for health care. Is our government so poorly organized that they can't meet the physical and emotional needs of all our veterans without them having to wait in the back of the line? They should have sufficient access to health care and adequate resources, not as a right, but on the basis of promises made by the leaders of our country. For those of you who may not know, I work in the healthcare as a manager of a specialty office. Several weeks ago, I received a call. On the other end was a gentleman who literally was pleading for help. He was an amputee veteran, with phantom pain, and his name was Scott. Because of the pain, he was unable to sleep for more than 45 minutes a night. His other doctors had told him that they had done all that they could, and perhaps he should see a sleep specialist. I explained our practice was related to sleep apnea and did not deal with the psychological aspects of sleep deprivation. At that point, our conversation became painful, and I mean painful for both of us. He was pouring his heart out to a stranger on the other end of a phone for help and didn't know where else to turn. For those of you that know me, I don't often feel helpless. But after listening to him, I didn't know what else to say. In the end, all I could do was tell him how sorry I was that our office could not provide him with the help he needed. I didn't even have the courage to say thank you for your service. How can we, aka the government, tell any vet that we have done all that we can? We don't have enough facilities to care for our vets, and we have devalued the services of the doctors so much that most private practices aren't providers for the VA system because the compensation is so poor. So where do our men and women turn? The answer is us. After all, our soldiers served our country in our time of need. Isn't it now our duty and obligation to care for our veterans as they were promised? All of us here today can say we love our country, but our government just is not honoring the commitment that they promised to our soldiers and heroes. So I say to all of you today, let's commit to contacting our congressmen, our senators, any elected official, and telling them that they must take and make our veterans a priority, not just on November 11th, but every day of the year. Do not continue denying them access to fair health care. The promises on the VA website don't reflect the reality of what is delivered. The obstacles must be removed. As I end today, I'd like to leave you with a quote by John F. Kennedy that pretty much says it all. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by them. So thank you, everyone, and especially thank you to all of our heroes in uniform here today.
Hi, my name is Samantha Emmerich, and I'm here with Congressman Mike Thompson's office. I'm going to read some prepared remarks. Dear friends, today we pause to honor and recognize the enormous sacrifices of our nation's veterans and their families. There are more than 1.4 million armed forces personnel currently serving our nation on active duty around the world. There are 3.1 million family members of active duty and reserve members. These brave Americans are serving our country selflessly, without any expectation of recognition, of gratitude, or of praise. They do it out of duty and out of honor. More, they do it for us. The most meaningful way to show our gratitude for this sacrifice is to fulfill our commitment to our service members, our veterans, and their families. As a combat veteran myself, I fully understand the importance of making sure our nation's veterans receive the benefits that they have earned. We must strengthen healthcare services for all of our veterans, from the catastrophically disabled to those suffering from PTS, depression, and traumatic brain injury. We must continue to provide support to help family members and caregivers who nurse our wounded soldiers. We must make sure our war heroes have opportunities. The opportunity to get a quality education, the opportunity to get a good paying job, and the opportunity for a dignified retirement. We have already taken significant steps to fulfill these promises. We've restored the promise of a full 4-year college education for veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan and their families through the new GI Bill. We provided tax incentives to businesses that put unemployed veterans back to work and money for job training. We've increased job opportunities for veterans in high-growth fields like the energy sector and ensured that veteran-owned small businesses can fairly compete for federal contracts. We've expanded home ownership opportunities to and refinancing options for veterans. We've made investments to help reduce veteran homelessness by nearly 10,000 from 2010 and 11. And just this last year, I worked to pass a bill in the House that will make sure veterans who return from combat with PTS and TBI have access to innovative treatments like those being offered in Yountville at the Pathway House, even if they are outside of the VA system. But there is always more we can do. No one who has honorably served our nation should go without a paycheck or a roof over their head. Whatever we think about war, we must always, always honor our warriors. And so today, let us honor those who sacrificed their lives for our country the best way we know how, by pledging to always take care of the mothers and fathers, the sisters and brothers, the sons and daughters, and fellow soldiers they left behind. Thank you, Congressman Mike Thompson.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Precious Jocks. I am an 11th grader and junior class president of Pinole Valley High School. On this day, November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the Armistice of Compiègne was signed and World War I ended. People thought this was the war to end all wars, but as we can see today, we are still far away from that. But that doesn't mean our troops sacrificed everything for nothing. They fought to bring peace among us, to remember all the injuries and lives that were lost for one cause, peace. Now, what is Veterans Day? Veterans Day was formerly known as Armistice Day because of the treaty of the same name was signed. Armistice means a break in fighting or a truce to discuss terms for peace. This shows that this day, November 11th, is a day for peace, but also a day to honor all that has served in our Army, Navy, Air Force, and everything beyond. A fellow veteran, Arnold E. Stiber, feels that some people use today as a way of justifying war to deal with conflicts. He goes on to say that the glorification of the military is so pervasive, it has become part of our culture. The few, the proud, the Army of One, highways dedicated to military units and organizations, fighter jets, flyovers, POW, MIA flags, the list goes on and on. Therefore, all of these add to the myth and glorify the action of killing. Today is supposed to be about peace for the ones who served in the Army, not to glorify the idea of war. So let's all strive for peace among our community and create a chain reaction to influence other communities. Let's also never forget what our veterans have sacrificed for us as American citizens and for our country as a whole. Thank you.
Your Honor, Mayor Debbie Long, Jeff Rubin, Vice President, Pinole Historical Society, and fellow Americans. I am Carl Petersdorf, past commander of Jesse Orchard Post number 2798 of Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States of America. Our post here in Pinole consisted of veterans from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The past couple of years, we had 24 members pass away, which required our post to consolidate with the Jesse Novakovich Post 1525 in Concord, California, rather than close our post. Now, the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States is a national association of men and women who, as soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen, served this nation in wars, campaigns, expeditions on foreign soil in hostile waters. As a World War II veteran and Korea veteran, I'm pleased to join with the City of Pinole, Pinole Historical Society, and other participating units in the 6th Annual Veterans Day Memorial and Flag Retirement Ceremony of our service-worn flags of our great nation, the emblem of freedom and the symbol of unity. May we ever love and defend it. We are gathered here on Veterans Day to pay tribute to and honor all veterans who served and are still serving us today. This day is our opportunity to publicly commemorate and express our gratitude for the contributions and sacrifices made by so many. Our American founders were the first in history to establish a government based on the proposition that all people are endowed by their Creator with the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These great principles were brought about after the War of 1776, when we won our independence as a nation. Since then, we have been tested and still are going forth to champion the law that we and all people of the earth are entitled to the God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, wherever we might be. As Americans, we should rededicate ourselves to the great principles that have formed the basis for our national strength and prosperity. And it is our responsibility to preserve it. Our veterans need to be recognized and respected for completing difficult missions and when committed to combat defending our great nation and its national interests. We owe them our freedom, our lives, and our future. They carried out the responsibility of citizenship, duty, honor, country. And it is our nation's duty to ensure that all veterans, wounded and disabled, receive the care and treatment and entitlements that they deserve. My friends, as members of my generation pass away, we should remember the words of our great President, Ronald Reagan, who stated, "Freedom is not something to be secured in any one moment of time. We must struggle to preserve it every day, and freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. In closing, to honor our veterans, fly the American flag. Let us recall that the American flag, wherever it waves, it is the symbol of free life and democratic government. Its colors belong to the earth, where flowers bloom, and to the skies where the stars shine. It catches in its folds the light of morn, the radiance of noon, the glow of the sunset hour, and reflects them back with cheer and hope into the great depths of humanity. It's a beacon to guide us, a shield to defend us. May the virtues born of the flag be enshrined in our hearts. May the sentiment of the flag be preserved in our American way of life and perpetuated in all our institutions to the end that charity may abound, that justice shall prevail, and that brotherly love and fidelity shall abide in the land. Thank you all for coming. God bless you, and God bless America.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Guerra, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Pinole Youth Commission. I'd like to begin by saying even though I don't know any veterans on a personal level, I appreciate this day and use it to show my appreciation and admiration together with my fellow citizens. I've had an interest in U.S. Armed Forces and law enforcement careers for as long as I can remember. As my possible career choices, I of course admire our veterans and troops' hard work, determination, bravery, perseverance, and sacrifices. They are truly my motivation. I also can't help but think that this country is as great as it is because of the men and women who fought and are fighting for our freedom. It is because of you that it is truly the land of the free and home of the brave. So I salute and thank all of our veterans and future veterans who are serving right now and who have served. I truly value the sacrifices you have made so we can all live free each day. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is George Vincent. This is my wife, Christy. I am a board member on the Pinole Historical Society. I want to begin my remarks by saying if we inadvertently leave out anyone in the ringing of the bell to honor those who have passed and those who have served, please bring it to my attention later. Thank you. My wife's father was the B-17 pilot in World War II. He flew 25 missions out of Italy over Germany. He did survive, but he had many of the scars of war. But the one thing he remembered probably more than the flak that shot through his airplane and almost killed him was the Italian children rummaging through the garbage dumps at the airbase to find scraps of food to survive. War affects everyone. Each day, we lose 1,200 veterans of World War II. They fought for $1.66 a day and sacrificed their lives for $50 a month. Some of you might have recently read about the survivors of the Doolittle raid. For those of you high school students of history, that was the Pearl Harbor in reverse. After the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, we turned the tide on them in 1942 early when Doolittle and his 80 B-17 bombers attacked Japan. Psychologically, it was an uplift for the United States after Pearl Harbor. Today, only 4 of those 80 B-17 crew members who survived are living. One is 98 years old. Each year, they drink from a silver cup, honoring those who have died and turn the cup over for those who have passed. And there are currently only 3 of them left. So we are here today to ring the bell, to honor the names of the dead that we know who have served in all of the wars from Pinole, those who have served from Pinole and from Hercules. I'd like to start by saying we want to recognize and honor all the veterans who made all these sacrifices to bring peace to our world. World War I, 1914 to 1918, when it ended. A few of those veterans that have passed long ago from Pinole: George Dutra, Bill Lewis, and Monty Martinez, and we honor their names. World War II, 1939 to 1945. Pinole had a population of only about 1,000 individuals, but Pinole lost 6 of her sons. Quite a large percentage from such a small town. Their names are Jack Edwards, Gordon Hughes, Bernardo Fernandez, Edward Hall, Michael Vast, and James Wynne. The Korean War from 1950 to 1953. Dan Skiles, former commander of the VFW, who lost an arm and a leg in that war, and we honor his name. The Vietnam War, 1964 to 1975. Ralph Stacy McGuane Jr. gave his life from Pinole. Iraq and Afghanistan Wars, 2002, ongoing. Private Sean Anthony Silva. I wish also to honor the names of those veterans since our last ceremony last year who have passed on, but who gave their sacrifice and their service for this town and for their country which they loved. Wesley Owens, United States Marine Corps. I knew Wesley personally. Wesley fought at Guadalcanal in the Pacific in one of the most ferocious battles of World War II. He lived under constant shelling by Japanese ships. He lost almost all of his hearing. He was in a coma with malaria in Australia for weeks. He lost all of his teeth from jungle rot. He could not get disability benefits from the Veterans Association after applying many, many times. And he passed on without ever receiving those benefits. Just to reinforce what Debbie Long, our mayor, said about how our veterans need so much of our support today. I wish also to honor Edward Lefevre, United States Army. Edward Lefevre volunteered to fight. He only had one eye. He managed to get through the medical examination and fought for his country with only one eye in the Rangers in the Burma campaign in the Pacific. Donald Henry Castro, who recently passed, a veteran of the United States Navy. Harold Silva, a veteran of the United States Army. Gene Freya, a veteran of the United States Army. Larry Hughes Mariero, a good friend, a veteran of the United States Army. Larry grew up in the streets of Pinole, Fernandez Park, the Bay, and the Creek. He was a Pinole boy all the way. He served 3 tours of duty in Vietnam and recently passed. And lastly, who recently passed, Dr. Joseph Mariotti, United States Army. And we wish to leave you with this thought, everyone. Those who live in freedom today, all of us, will always be grateful to those who help preserve it through their sacrifices. Thank you all for coming today.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me, His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures.
Good morning, everyone, veterans, non-veterans, and future veterans, and veteran wannabes. I'm Jack Meehan, and I have a little historical snippet to impose upon you, and I hope that you will see the relevance between it and today, because we make history every day. It's evident all around us, constantly. Well, before our Civil War debate in Washington regarding the route of a transcontinental railroad was waged for 2 decades, would it be a northern route, a southern route, or a middle route? The Civil War made that decision for us. Abraham Lincoln signed the Pacific Railroad Act in 1863, and it was to be the middle route. And it was to begin in Omaha, Nebraska, and Sacramento, California, each headed toward the other. And eventually they met in 1868, 4 years after the implementation of the Pacific Railroad Act. 4 years, and the nation was linked by railroad. The Central Pacific started here in Sacramento, moving eastward, and the Union Pacific, staffed mainly by veterans of the Civil War, and that was headed westward. They met at Promontory Point. Now, the western branch, that is the Central Pacific, was headed by 4 enterprising and very almost cutthroat gentlemen, and you might remember some of their names. There was Collis P. Huntington, Charlie Crocker, Mark Hopkins, and Leland Stanford, the same name as the school down the road. Well, after linking at Promontory Point, it was possible to travel by rail from the East Coast to the West Coast in 4 days. 4 days. Now, more than a century later, it's possible to do that same thing in 3 days and 20 hours. Go figure. Well, a shortcut was needed from Sacramento to San Francisco, and the Central Pacific, soon to be named the Southern Pacific, found a way to come across the Carquinez Straits by boat to a railroad that they were building along the shore of San Pablo Bay. And the year was 1874 when it was called the Northern Railway, not to be hidden from the fact that about 10 years later, every railroad in California was owned or operated by the Big Four, the Southern Pacific. And is in that position, they were able to dictate freight rates from the great Central Valley to San Francisco to the ports, and to monopolize that transit system. Well, every monopoly generates some competition, and the competition came from the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, which reached Los Angeles in the late 1880s, and began to move up the valley. Well, there was a lot of contests between the Santa Fe and the Southern Pacific, but eventually from the town of Stockton westward, there was a railroad called the San Francisco and San Joaquin Valley Railroad that went right through here. And the year was 1898, and it reached a little community called Point Richmond, where from there the trains went by barge to San Francisco, and the great monopoly of the Southern Pacific was broken. So behind you is a monumental railroad right-of-way that destroyed the Big Four's monopoly and reached new heights over the years, in some ways overshadowing the Southern Pacific. Well, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe became one of the surviving 5 major railroads after more than 200 had been established throughout the United States. Well, there were only 5 left, and through consolidation, the Santa Fe became part of the Burlington Northern, which was also a hybrid, and became the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Well, as corporations will go, you can now see since 2005 the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, the survivor, the crippler of the monopoly of the Southern Pacific, is now corporately known simply as BNSF. The BNSF, the glamour of the Santa Fe, has been committed to history. Well, if you turn around, you'll see the history behind you that played such a role. That's enough for now. I was going to save until next year a little lesson about immigration reform and how a bunch of immigrants, undocumented immigrants, to this area took up arms. There was no gun control, there was no documentation control, and they tore down the government's flag and ran up their own, and they really made a mess out of the government for at least 2 months until it finally got resolved. But I'll tell you that story next year. Thank you.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true neath the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true neath the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gino Ortega, Troop 86 Pinole. Color Guard, attention. Will the audience please rise? Color Guard, forward march. Color Guard, halt. Color Guard, prepare to present the colors. Color Guard, present the colors. Hand salute. Color Guard, retire the colors. Two. Color Guard reform. Color Guard about face. Color Guard retreat. Color Guard forward march. Color Guard halt. Color Guard prepare to present the colors. Color Guard, present the colors. Hand salute. Please join me in these flags' last pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard, retire the colors. Two. Color Guard reform. Color Guard about face. Color Guard retreat. Color Guard dismissed. Audience may be seated. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Contra Costa County Supervisor John Joya, and let me first start by saying on behalf of Contra Costa County, I want to acknowledge the service of all the veterans who are here today. And let me ask you to raise your hand, all the veterans who are here to raise your hand or stand. You can all give them a hand again. You know, this is the third Veterans Day event I've been at this morning, and what's so great and so wonderful is each of them have recognized Veterans Day in their own unique way. The first one, earlier this morning in Richmond, recognize the importance of all of us providing services and a welcome home to those who return from wars or from service. And I think we do owe it to make sure that those who return are given a warm welcome, and we back that up with providing services to them, whether it's to help get a job, whether it's health care, whether it's linking to federal benefits, that we need to do that. The second event I went to was near the Red Oak Victory Ship in Richmond, and it recognized the history, not just the history of veterans in World War II, but of the home front and those who worked alongside veterans. And I think what makes this one special is the role of young people, the role of youth, who are now the new generation and part of continuing the traditions that the veterans fought for. For those of us in elective office and in government, we're here because so many of you who are veterans and others have done so much over the years to preserve the democracy that we have today, to preserve the democratic values that we have, and to preserve our way of life here in the United States. So I thank you for that. And that's what makes our country great, all of our communities great, and Pinole here great, is that we all recognize different ways of acknowledging Veterans Day. So I want to thank you for coming, for those who support the veterans who are here today, and especially to the young people from Pinole Valley and the Boy Scouts, because you're continuing a tradition of service to this country, and there's so many ways we can serve. Those in the military served one way, and all of you are serving a different way. So thank you very much for your service. Thank you for being here. And we all need to remain committed to ensure that when veterans return home, we are doing our best to make sure that we welcome them and we provide them with the best chance of success when they return to our communities. So thank you.
Well, another Veterans Day celebration. I am so proud as president of the Pinole Historical Society to be here again today to speak to all of you about this celebration. I also want to thank all of you. I want to thank these wonderful young men and women in our band for playing glorious military songs today. I want to thank all of the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts for your participation. Your dedication and loyalty today is the beginning of your future tomorrow. I hope that this celebration will teach all of you that you must revere, you must respect, and you must always remember this day. Never forget it, because it is memorable for all of us. I won't forget this day because as a young girl during World War II, my family lost two folks in World War II. One was PFC Wright. He died the 26th day of the Bataan Death March. He was a lovely young man, and he was an explorer scout, and he had gone to many international jamborees. I won't forget him. I also won't forget Captain Saul Wright, who died the third day on Iwo Jima in a little Piper Cub doing reconnaissance, trying to help our boys get a better hold on that island. Two wonderful young men from the northern New Mexico military reserves there. I won't go back and reflect on everything the other speakers have talked about, but what I want to encourage all of you as parents and young people is read about the wars, read them, learn what happened, try to understand why these conflicts got started. And in our high schools, I hope when the students are learning about civics and the wars, don't be afraid to talk about them. Bring in veterans to come in and speak to them and tell the students what their experiences were about. They're priceless, they're precious. Grandfathers should be talking to their grandchildren and telling them about what it was like. Some of it's not pleasant, but it will help them, the students to understand. It will help them to be more patient, and it'll help them be, most of all, tolerance. We must be tolerant and respect each other. When I hear about all this bullying in the schools right now, it disturbs me deeply because we shouldn't be doing that. Our students should be respecting each other. Bullying turns into fighting, fighting turns into more bad things. So I'm hoping children and all of you young people stop the bullying. Get to know your friends better and respect them. I can tell you now, our veterans, when they were serving, they didn't bully each other. They stood together as a team and they fought with strength. That's what you need. You need to look and see how we won all these wars or how we made it better for the United States of America to live. That's the way we look at it. We look to the future. Again, I hope that all of you will come next year again, and hopefully I'll be here again to thank you all for coming. So thank you so much again for being part of this wonderful day, this wonderful celebration. Thank you.
Just a few pieces of information before we leave. You'll notice at the bottom of your program that the funds to broadcast this event were provided by the Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Benicia. I'd like to tell you how that happened. As you know, there's not a lot of money in the city of Pinole, and when we televise events like this, we have to come up with sponsors. And Bob Mariaro, come on up. Come on. Former Scoutmaster Bob Mariaro works for Coca-Cola, and he's the one who arranged to have Coca-Cola sponsor the broadcast of this event. It will be edited, and according to Dave Snell, it'll be on TV in about 90 minutes. Is that right? No, a little longer than that, but look forward on Channel 28 very soon. And Bob, thank you very much for arranging for this sponsorship with Coca-Cola. Thank you. You're all invited to lunch at the Senior Center. They're putting on a special Veterans Day lunch. Veterans eat for free. The rest of us eat for $5. It's a barbecue chicken lunch. They always have good food there, so you're welcome to walk across the bridge and eat with us. And Friday night, the Historical Society has an event at Kaiser. It's a program that features a survivor of the Battle off Samar, which occurred in June of 1944. Herman Prevet was a 19-year-old sailor on that ship that was sunk in the Leyte Gulf. And if you're reading the newspapers, you'll notice that that's where the recent typhoon in the Philippines just hit. And the island of Samar was one of the most devastated of those islands that the typhoon passed through. He will be speaking and reminiscing about his 2 days spent floating in the Pacific Ocean before he was rescued. And we will also be showing a professionally produced video of that battle that includes interviews with survivors from that battle. So that is this Friday from 6:30 to 8 in conference rooms 1A and 1B at Kaiser on Pinole Valley Road. And that's it for this year. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We had another glorious day. When I first looked at the weather report last week, there was a 40% chance of rain, and it turned out to be a marvelous day to honor our veterans. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you next year.